Senegal leading Belgium 2 goals to nil, to Egypt leading Argentina 2 goals to nil. You can have the DRC also against England, and you can have the Ivory Coast against the Norway game too. Bro, the list is endless, and so is the heartbreak too. It's serious, so is the heartbreak too. This World Cup has actually been an incredible round for African teams, and there's no doubt about it. No one's going to take it because for the first time ever, 9 African teams have been able to progress through towards the next round, and it's an incredible run. But it begs a differ. It begs a question. What actually happens to African teams when it reaches that 80 minutes mark? Because it seems that whenever it reaches that 80 minutes mark, everything just crumbles. So in this video, I'm just going to actually try and find out what's actually wrong with this African teams and what actually happens. Let's just take around and see if this is a good video. Peace. I think the first thing we actually need to talk about is game management, which is really important. In this World Cup alone, Senegal, Egypt, Ivory Coast, and South Africa have all been eliminated in the last minutes or the dying embers of the game. One thing I've actually noticed about African teams is that whenever African teams are leading, they always want to sit in deep. They always want to go back. Instead of them actually opening the game or playing the pass, they rather sit in deep. And them sitting in deep, they are inviting pressure. And the elite European and South American teams are used to this. That's what they like. So because they are inviting pressure, then they'll begin to attack more. You can use the Argentina versus the Egypt game like this. After Egypt scored the 2 goals, they could have actually really played well with Argentina because everyone who was watching the game could clearly see that Egypt were beating Argentina hands down. But after they scored the 2 goals, instead of them to actually play more of the ball, they actually decided to sit deep. And the worst thing about it is that they are not even really good at defending. That's what actually killed them. So they sitting deep and inviting pressure is actually against them, and it always hits African teams. So for the second problem, you need to look at the squad depth and the physicals. When you ask me what an African football identity is, I'll most definitely tell you that African identity is based on the strength, it's based on the sprint, and it's based on just explosive speed. So when you have this in your team, for the first half, you can expect the African teams to be pressing, to be throwing more shots, to be doing a whole lot, which actually exhausts a lot of energy. So you can just imagine spending your first 1 to 70 to 80 minutes doing all these things. But when it's getting to the latter stages of the game, you begin to feel tired, your concentration wanes. That's whereby the European teams actually capitalize on it. Because African teams too don't have that enough squad depth, they can't substitute quality for quality. You get me? So when they substitute quality, when like they are making substitutions, like substituting quality for subpar. You get me? But the Europeans, they have quality for quality. So when they're substituting, they're always substituting quality for quality. But it's something that's always there. That's why the big teams are always winning when you even go to the club team. Because for example, if you look at Arsenal bench like this, they have what's the name? They have Chris Morgan, they have Odegaard, like they have a whole lot of star players. So whenever Mikel Arteta's tactics aren't going well, we just go to this bench and take quality for quality. You compare Arsenal's bench to maybe a Wolves bench, you don't get me. So the quality difference is big. So even imagine if both of these teams like this are pressing and doing the same things at the same level. If Arsenal players start getting tired, Mikel Arteta can switch quality and bring you another quality, but the Wolves coach can't bring in that same quality game. So that actually also plays against African teams because you are always using explosive energy in the first few minutes in the first hours of our games. That's always goes against us. That's also not having squad depth and something that's always going against us. Bro, and also let's talk about something. Let's actually talk about mentality, bro. Mentality. Yes, mentality. Most African teams, I don't know, it seems like they have this psychological barrier. One of the reasons why I think Morocco is actually really doing well is that Morocco has actually broken past that barrier. Right now, Morocco doesn't actually see their team as just another normal African team. No, they see themselves as equal to the Europeans. I think that psychological barrier is something you actually need to also progress from it. Because if you are not breaking from that psychological barrier, trust me, we are not getting to the heights Morocco has gotten to, and we are not also ever going to break this kind of case. Because let's be real, it's deep. Because European teams actually take psychologists along with the team to actually think of the players' mental health. But let me tell you, in Africa, mental health is not even part of it. Let's be real, mental health is not part of it. People don't actually factor in mental health when it comes to this football. But it's not part of it because, for example, how can you tell me that you're a team and you are leading 2 goals to nil? How is it that because of the over excitement, because of the anticipation of the win, you begin to forget about the tactics, you begin to forget about everything and just crumble at that time? That's not normal. So it depends on the mentality. And I think we need to change our mentality. We need to actually start thinking like the Europeans, or we need to actually start seeing ourselves as them. Because if we start seeing ourselves as them, we will then learn how to manage our game. Because I do feel like when it gets to that closing time of the game, most of the coaches and most of the players on the field, they begin to feel like the fans. Because we the fans, you actually feel happy because you know it's just this close till we eliminate this team and progress forward. So who does the players on the field and so is the manager who is making the tactics. They all feel happy, so they actually forget about the team they are facing. They are all thinking about the X before they hatch. You get me? So I think this is the psychological barrier I need to break, because if you're not breaking past the psychological barrier, you're not going forward. Trust me. That's all I have. Peace.